Hey everyone, hopefully over the next few days I can share with you every day just a little bit about what I read in the Bible. I did start a 1-year reading plan today with YouVersion, and I know I'm jumping the gun just a little bit early. I know it's not 2026 just yet. I am starting today, and today's reading started with obviously Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2. This particular reading plan, which I can link somewhere in the description, it also goes on to Matthew chapter 1, Matthew chapter 2, and then one Psalm and one proverb every day, which I think is pretty cool. So my goal really to leave you with just a little snippet of something I learned that maybe would help you or benefit you. So I'll just read the first 8 or 9 verses of Genesis chapter 1 and then just leave you with what I learned today, a couple things that maybe I didn't know that I studied today or looked into today. So Genesis chapter 1, I'll just read the first few verses. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Verse 8, and God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear," and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas, and God saw that it was good. So a couple things I learned in Genesis chapter 1 is that there is an Egyptian text from Thebes, Greece, and it speaks of a god named Amun. And according to the text, Amun evolved in the beginning, or it would be said more accurately that, or interpreted that, on the first occasion. So on the first occasion, this goddess Amun evolved. And in the same manner, the Hebrew words "in the beginning," or just the word beginning, which is Bereshit, usually refers to a period of time or an initial period of time, and it's not necessarily a singular point in time. This could indicate that ex nihilo, which means out of nothing, is not necessarily true, but I'm not here to speculate. In other words, it's just entirely possible that Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1 is to be read as in the beginning or at the start of this 7-day period, not necessarily in the beginning of all time. Perhaps the earth and cosmos existed prior to any scriptural account, but God decided to bring order to the chaos in this moment. So rather as reading in the beginning of all time, maybe it's saying in the beginning of this 7-day period. Okay, so there's an Egyptian epic called the Enuma Elish, and I might be mispronouncing that. Sorry to all of my scholars out there. But it is a great resource to compare biblical text and ANE, or ancient Near Eastern history, for greater understanding. In the Enuma Elish, a goddess named Tiamat, or Tiamat, was the god of the chaotic ocean. And one day, the supreme god of Babylon, named Marduk, decided to go to battle with Tiamat. And after killing Tiamat, Marduk literally built the physical heavens, or the physical world, from Tiamat's corpse. Kind of gruesome. And what Marduk did is he sliced her body in half. One half became the sky, which was the waters above, and the other half became the ocean, or rather the earth, which is the water below. You know, perhaps this is a reference to Genesis chapter 1 and verse 7, or cross-reference when God divided the waters and made the firmament, as we read earlier. It seems that the biblical account is most accurate, and this shows how stories get passed down and reshaped. Now understand, I'm not saying that I believe in what mythology has claimed. I do believe the scripture, but simply showing how different cultures surrounding the Israelites also had their own version of the story. It's really cool to see how the scriptures subtly and gently disagree with other ancient religions that were surrounding the Israelites in that time. One clear example of this is how it avoids using actual names for the sun and the moon. Surrounding cultures of the ancient Near East used names for the sun and moon because they viewed them as gods. However, the Bible just simply says the greater light and the lesser light. It doesn't give the sun or the moon or the stars any names whatsoever, but it rather just says, well, this is the greater light and this is the lesser light, which in my opinion further strengthens the monotheistic point of view of the Bible, that Yahweh is God and him alone do we worship. One last thing I learned today is that in Mesopotamian creation stories, people are made by mixing clay with the blood of a god who was killed for rebelling. Humans, according to mythology, are created because the gods are fighting each other, and one god has to defeat chaos in order to bring the world into order. But in the book of Genesis, creation is completely different. God doesn't create the world because of a war or a conflict. He isn't struggling or battling with anyone. Instead, he calmly and intentionally creates everything in an orderly and peaceful way. I hope these facts were helpful for you. I certainly find them encouraging to know that despite the surrounding cultures of the day, the Bible still proves to be most accurate. And it also tells me that there is a God who intentionally created me, and that he is not a God who is of many, but he is one God who intentionally formed and created me in his image.